Okay, you've heard us talk about this all the time on the show about infinite banking. How do you actually use it? Can it actually work with your investments? That's what I'm going to have one of our guests here share with us today. Hello, my fellow Ripplers. This is Chris Miles, your cash flow expert and anti-financial advisor. This show is for those of you that work so hard for your money and you're now ready for your money to start working harder for you today. You want that freedom. You want that cash flow now. You don't have to wait 30 or 40 years for it, but you want it today so you can live that life that you love doing what you love, to become work optional, where you work because you want to, not because you have to. But most importantly, guys, it's not just about getting you rich, although that's a great benefit too, but it's about living a rich life because as you are blessed financially, you now have a greater capacity to bless the lives of those around you. That is a ripple effect I'm here to create for you guys today. I appreciate so much for you guys to tune in. You've been sharing and everything else. Shout out to you guys because this episode's especially for you. All right, so I'm bringing on a guest here that we've never had on, and this is just not your typical guru type guest, right? I didn't want that. I think sometimes the best things, and the feedback I've gotten from many of you is you love having guests on that are in the place doing the very things that you're wanting to do right now, right? It's not like, here's what you could be doing. This is, what can I do right now? Like what my next step would look like. What is it? And that's why I'm bringing on Chris Waters here. Now, Chris is a retired dentist, retired back in 2021, lives in rural Nebraska with his wife, Corey, has a few kids as well, loving life, enjoying a very active lifestyle. And yes, the guy even does infinite banking too, with his investments and everything else. And especially when he sent me an email recently talking about some of the deals he was doing, I said, you know what? Would you mind sharing this with the audience? Because I know they would love to hear how you're actually using it real time versus just me preaching from the podcast over and over. So Chris, welcome to our show.
Hey, thanks for having me, Chris. I appreciate it.
This is going to be weird for you because I know you listen to the show as well. So, you're going to be listening to
Yes,
yourself here in a little bit.
yes, I do. It's a good show. Enjoy it.
Yeah. Well, to give us a little bit more of your backstory, like, because you actually are financially free right now. You've gotten out of the rat race, as many people would call it. I know you sold your practice. Tell us about that journey. Like, first, what got you on the journey for financial freedom, and then second, how'd you get there?
I was just like the traditional person, just accumulating money for 32 years in my dental practice. And I started thinking about retiring, and I was like, I don't really want all this pile of money. I want it to be more passive. I want to be able to get cash flow out of it. So I was
Right.
studying one of our mentors in my mastermind group that I joined, and that's how I kind of got started with it. Just saying, hey, this sounds like a really good idea.
And so you joined it. And what were some of the ahas you had? Because, like you said, you're on the traditional path. You were doing like a lot of these guys, right? You've been taught to stuff your money in your mutual funds, whether it's your practices 401k plans or whatever else you've been doing. What had to shift for you to make that leap towards financial independence?
It was definitely about a 180-degree shift. When I got into the mastermind group, I was like, really? You can do this? So it was just exciting to meet, our service providers that provide the investments, but also just the people that were doing it. And
Mm,
that made me think, gosh, I want to do this. I've always kind of wanted to be my own financial advisor instead of having to, rely on other people.
hmm
You know, it always says like whoever controls the money makes the money. That's always a thing that I've heard since I've been doing this. And I said it's very true. So my eyes were opened and I enjoyed the group. It was, like investors, like-minded people. A lot of them were dentists. We could really relate to each other. And it was just a whole different experience I never experienced before, and I really thought that that's where I wanted to go with my investing. I wanted to be in control. I wanted to know who I was investing with, who were controlling the investments, and just having the ability to communicate with them one on one. Instead of having to go through my financial advisor and not really even knowing what investment my money was invested in.
hmm
So yeah, it's invested in some mutual funds, but what mutual funds are they invested in? A small cap, large cap,
hmm
momentum, value, things like that. I was like, I don't know, I want to do something different. It was a pretty bold move because I retired and then I started doing this, which is probably backwards, but
Yeah.
it's been a good experience.
Yeah. Most people usually, try to do this so they can retire or become work optional. And you like, I'm just gonna get rid of this practice. I'm sure if you said it was in 2021, I knew a lot of people in practice that 2020 was very revealing. It either showed you that one, you never want to retire, or two, you can't wait to get rid of that practice. I'm guessing maybe you were the latter, maybe something in between.
Yeah, it was an eye-opening experience. I had the opportunity. I had an associate in my practice that was a really good dentist and mature. He was older. He wasn't just right out of school, so he had a lot of skill and ability. And he was with me for 3 years. And he was going to buy my practice actually in January of 25. That was the
Oh,
plan, about a 5 year plan, and we just kind of reduced it to about a 2.5 year plan. And he said he was ready and he's thriving, and I still go to the office and everybody still works there. So it worked out really well for us
a really good
and for him.
handoff then.
Yeah.
Well, now you've done things like real estate investments and whatnot. I mean, what now looking back, what have you learned? Like, what would you say that somebody who's looking into this that maybe are in mutual funds right now, but they're wondering, is this really the thing, or should I just keep putting my money in the market? I mean, what's been your experience?
One of the best things I ever learned was how to do due diligence on real estate, which I did not do, and I got hammered pretty good when the Fed started raising their interest rates, and we just had some really poor managed properties. Not They just weren't very high quality properties.
Hmm.
I didn't know any better. My wife and I didn't know any better. We thought, okay, yeah, we're just going to invest with this, and that's going to be the end of it. That's fine, no big deal. Yeah, we'll just invest in the properties. Well, you really have to be able to look at the properties. And if you have to go there, physically go there, I'd recommend that. But real estate's all about property. If it's turnkey management properties, it's all about property managers. And
Hmm.
that's the whole thing about real estate for me. But there's other aspects to real estate, funds, oil and gas, I'm invested in, just different debt funds and things like that.
Yeah, that's great. Any regrets?
I wish I wouldn't 1031 exchange into the 6 properties that I have because they were pretty worthless. But other than that, I mean,
Hmm.
you learn from your failures, and we're just trying to learn from that.
Yeah,
That's the one thing I would recommend. Just learn how to do due diligence because we didn't know how to do that. That was our
completely
fault
agree.
too. Yeah,
Yeah, I know in our program we put a big emphasis on that, especially nowadays, because we put a lot of responsibility on our members to do that kind of stuff, and it's not always easy. I mean, there is something kind of enticing about being in the stock market where you can just quote unquote set it and forget it, right? You just kind of just set it aside, don't do anything with it. But at the same time, yeah, I haven't seen anybody really be successful with it, not on a good grand scale.
yeah, I would agree. When I listen to your podcast and watch your YouTube videos, I mean, you really break it down with the numbers. I mean, people just don't. Financial advisors don't do that. They don't break it down with inflation and how you break it down. So it's just nice to be able to have cash flow coming in, whether you call it passive income. I guess you could call it passive income, but that's a relief. It just shows up in your account. So hey, that's how much money I have now. So it's nice. I mean, it's
Hmm.
you don't have to. You do have to work a little harder at it, but that's like anything in life. If you want to succeed, you have to know what you're doing and you have to grow and learn how to best do that. I enjoy doing that. I don't think my wife really does, but
Hmm.
that's just kind of part of being married. So one person likes to do stuff and other person may not. But
Yeah.
yeah, it's been good.
Well, it's that, like you were saying before, that upfront due diligence. So then you can be passive, right? Which it's
Right.
not like you
Yeah.
just throw your money at something and that's it. You do nothing, you sit back. I mean, you really do have to become a student, and definitely I've seen you grow in that very respect. So, well, let's switch gears about how you're using this with infinite banking, right? Because I know a lot of people, some are like they get it, they're like they catch the vision, they're like all for it. And there's others that require a little bit more. Like they're like, I don't know, like should I just invest my money? Why would I do this too? Tell us your experience. I mean, you've only done this for a few years, but tell us about first and foremost what actually got you wanting to do infinite banking.
Well, like you said, I started a policy in November of 2022.
Mhm. If you've been following this podcast, you're probably looking for great ways to create passive income right now, right? Well, we got you covered here with Central Lending. Central Lending specializes in alternative investments that actually are designed to create steady returns and long term financial security for you and your family. Now they prioritize transparency. They love, building those strong relationships, giving you that confidence and peace of mind, knowing that you have your money working harder for you, so you don't have to work so hard for that money. You want to learn more how to do that? Go to centrallending.com and check out what they've got today to create your passive income and wealth creation right now.
And I wanted just to be in control of my money. I wanted to be able to not have to go to the bank all the time, fill out all the paperwork, get
Mm.
like 3 years of income tax returns, which I should have on my uh, desktop by now. But just things like that, just to be more in control. And I'm I'm pretty risk adverse. I mean, I'm conservative, but I don't mind risking stuff that I know about.
Mm.
So what we've been investing in is I invested in this is a long term play, but a liquid natural gas pipeline company. I also took a loan out for a rehab that I needed to get done so I could sell a property, which is a nice thing.
Mhm.
And also I'm in a 2 year debt fund. That's kind of a more of an arbitrage play. I have an arbitrage rate like 5.8%, just like a 2 year commitment,
Oh yeah.
things like that. But I just wanted to be able to just get my money in a week or whatever it takes, to get it from it. Just the freedom, just to be able to control my money. And you know, I just try to pay my. I don't try to pay my loan. I don't set up an amortization. I just try to chunk it when I get stuff back.
Mm.
I think it's called strategic loan balance. You have that loan in there, but you're going to get something paid off, so you do it. So if I sold a property, I'd pay some of it off. Things like that. I mean, it just makes it so much easier. I get it. I mean, I've studied this stuff. I'm over 100 hours at least, maybe 400 hours of infinite banking. I really get into it. I really like it.
Wow.
The ironic thing, Chris, is when I told you my testimonial about wish I would have known this 20 years ago,
Yeah.
I had my financial planner slash insurance agent slash patient slash friend set me up with a whole life mass mutual policy and goes, yeah, this is really cool. You can loan yourself money and take the money out at 3%. And I'm going like, why would I do that? That's stupid, But he wasn't calling it infinite banking because I don't think he really knew it was
Mhm.
infinite banking. So I just shake my head because I was like, and I think we bought a newer house in 2017, and I used my cash loan policy to pay off my loan like Dave Ramsey would. So
Uh-huh.
that's how much I've grown. So I'm like, it's just it's just unreal when I think about that stuff. If he would have explained it like you guys explain it, I think I would have gotten it, but I probably wouldn't have done it because because everybody follows a herd. No, you got to do your 401k, you got to do this, that, and everything else. So, but
Yeah.
I just chuckle now, and and the guy that was selling it to me is still alive, and he's probably in his mid 80s. I should go over there and just talk to him and chuckle about it. If that's what he was trying to teach me, but I just wasn't willing to listen or I didn't know.
Yeah.
You don't know what you don't know. So
Well, that's the hard thing. Even, whether I mean, he obviously the loan, aspect he might have known, but whether he knew by infinite banking or not, that's the thing is
yeah,
that there's so many different agents, so many different strategies. No wonder it's so confusing for people to want to do that strategy because, like
yeah,
you said, I mean, you've done hundreds of hours of research, right, on infinite banking. So I know you haven't been just watching my stuff because I don't have hundreds of hours of material for you to watch. So it's different. And how would you say it is different, like from what you study versus what you hear from me? Anything you hear out there that you say, "Hey guys, stay away from this," or "Hey, this is something else you should consider too."
most of the guys or podcasts I listen to are really similar to yours
Hmm.
because they're not in it to make money off you and your premiums. They
Yeah.
understand, they're most of the guys I listen to are just really big disciples of Nelson's Nash's. I
Mm.
mean, they've met with him, they've talked to him, they were personal friends with him before he passed away, and they're really, really into the Nelson Nash part of it, which is he discovered it or he founded the
Yeah.
IBC structure. But most of the guys I listen to are similar because you know, a lot of them might promote. I like using mine for investing,
Hmm.
where I may get another. I talked to Parker last week. I may get another policy for my daughter eventually, and maybe just do finance a car, finance her wedding when she's getting married in about a
Hmm.
year. Finance something else, my taxes or whatever. A lot of times people will talk about that, but that doesn't really interest me as much because I'm not really. getting the cash flow or the return on my investment that I feel like I can if I do it with investing. So
Right.
I that's what a lot of the guys talk about, especially in real estate. I think that's a big thing, and just other alternatives.
That's very true. I know that's one thing where, because like I started off with Nelson Nash almost 20 years ago, learning from the book and everything else. And the guys were disciples of his. But then I realized pretty quickly, I said, oh, you know what? This could be done better. Because when I
Mhm.
realized that I wasn't paying myself back, as an example, you hear a lot of those guys say that, like, oh, you pay yourself back interest. No, you don't.
Yeah,
You pay the insurance company interest.
yeah,
And so, like when you mentioned, like the car could work, but if you can get a car loan for this around the same interest rate as the loan you'd get from the insurance company or less, go with the bank. Use that for the bank. And
yeah,
like you said, use it for investing instead, where you can arbitrage that, make more money off of it than you would
yeah.
just trying to quote unquote not have debt, even though you have this quote unquote loan out there, right? This debt, so to speak, that is collateralized by your cash. So it's not like you're in debt, but at the same time, you're still paying interest rate to the insurance company, like they're the bank anyways. So why not
Right.
pay the same or less at a bank and then use that hard-earned money for something else, right?
I think too that one thing that I like too is with the insurance companies, they give you a yearly in report saying, well, this is how much interest you paid. Well, if you're investing that money, you get to deduct that. It's tax deductible.
Sure.
Whereas the other policies that you're using for cars or weddings or taxes or whatever isn't tax deductible. But when the insurance company, if you're using just one policy and mixing it with investing, mixing it with, I just call them pleasure investments,
Mhm.
then you don't know to break down the interest. It's a little harder to be able to do that and prove that you actually use it for an investment. So when I was talking to Parker, I thought maybe I'd have to use a different insurance company. And he said,
Mm,
no, as long as you have different policies, you'll be able to keep track of it, which I thought
that's
was,
right.
I didn't really think about that, but that was really good advice. But I think that is a great thing because, who wants to pay more taxes? I mean, nobody. I hope.
That's true. That's a confusing point for a lot of people, especially in business owners, because like you said, if it's a business purpose, you can write off the interest you pay the insurance company. Much like I try to compare it to like a credit card, where like we were talking about too, right? It's that you can have one policy, but if you use it for personal and business, the math gets really frustrating and almost impossible to figure out. Well, how much did I pay for business versus personal? If you have two separate policies, one that you use that is used only for business type of write offs, now you can say all that interest that they're charging me on, I can now pay that. Whenever I pay that, that is tax deductible as well. So not only am I making money on this, it's like having a business credit card that it's not just paying you points, right? But obviously it's paying you interest. It's actually paying you interest on your money that you have in the policy, and when you use it, and of course you also get the business write off too.
And I think the point you're making about the business too, I wish I would have known this in my dental business. I would have used it in my dental business. It would have been phenomenal. I think it would have been great to be able to do that.
Yeah.
I've heard other people using it, in their business, but also for incentivizing staff, getting policies on them to, allow them to have a little bit extra income or security and things like that to keep them longer in the practice and things like that. I thought that would have been an awesome tool.
Yeah. No
So
kidding. Well, that was kind of leading me to my next question. I mean, is there anything you wish you had known before that you now know today that would cause you to use it differently?
not necessarily. I think if I would have just known, you know, you you always talk about how your mental side has to, you have your mental attitude and you have
Yeah.
your scarcity, but your mind has to be open to these new ideas. And in my mind, wouldn't have been open. I mean, my mind just opened when I went to the mastermind group because it was something totally different than I did. I think you have to have your mind open. You have to study it first, and then just strategically use it. And you get the strategies from people like you or other podcasts that you listen to, and then you know, put your foot in the water, dip your toe in the water, and try one, and see what it's like. Everybody's so used to having an amortization. You got to pay your principal and your interest. Well, these are interest, just interest loans only, and then you can pay it
Yeah.
back whatever you want to. You don't have to. If you can't pay it back, every month or whatever, just formulate your own plan. Hey, I'm going to have this paid off by in 2 years. Like my debt fund's going to be, my money's going to be given back to me in 2 years. I'll just pay it off. Although I may pay the interest in the first year and the second year, which is going to be about 3 grand. But I think it's just, I wish I would have known it, like I said, but I don't know if I would have used it or not. It's just,
Hmm.
it's the mindset that you have to change first. And that's what I like about your podcast, because you don't focus all your stuff on IBC. You focus on mindset, abundance, scarcity, saver, spender, steward. That was a great podcast on there. We were just save, 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 save. And
Yeah.
we're fairly good stewards, but that made me kind of realize, like, hey, I think we need to give a little bit more than what we're doing, because just if you're generous, the money's going to flow back to you. It's just that's kind of the way it is, and it says that in the Bible. It's in Scripture, and I believe that for sure. So
Sure does. Yeah. Well, I mean, that's great advice. That alone, we could probably end the podcast on that. But I mean, would there be any final advice you would offer our listeners that's listening right now, whether it's about passive income and investing, or whether it's about using infinite banking as a tool? I mean, what kind of advice would you want to pass on, whether it's to your own kids or even if it's just anybody listening right now that's maybe trying to break that mindset?
yeah, I think do your due diligence, study what you want to do. If you want to do infinite banking, listen to your podcast, listen to other podcasts, read Nelson's book. I mean, it's a little outdated, but I mean, it's still relevant today. And if you get an IBC policy, just start with 10,000 or 5,000 or whatever, just to get just to see what it's like, and then kind of go from there. But action cures fear.
Yeah.
You just got to take action, like you always say, like on your podcast. You say, if you, I listen to a lot of stuff. I take action on some of it. I wish I would take action more, but it's, action cures fear. I think that's what you have to do. Just take action, but study what you want to do. Don't just blindly go in or be afraid that, something's going to happen. Well, if you just keep studying and learning it and then take action, your fears are going to go away. So,
Mhm.
and that's what I would recommend people do.
Great advice. Yeah. You got to have that action. Without it, it doesn't work. Well, let me ask you this too. I got two more questions for you. I mean, this first one here is, I mean, you obviously studied a lot about infinite banking. Why did you choose us versus any other people? I mean, there's people that are much more known for infinite banking because that's all they talk about, where we talk about other stuff. Why did you choose us?
Well, I have a personal relationship with you and Parker because I met you before face to face at our mastermind group. So
Yeah.
that's what got me involved. And just listening to you talk at the group, you're honest, truthful. You're not in it to make money for yourself. You want the client to do better than they could have if they went somewhere else. It's just a trust factor. You know, it's it's not what the investment is. I've always heard that. It's like, who do you invest with? It's the who, not the what or the how. It's always the who.
Yeah.
So I had a relationship with you guys, so it made it easy. I mean, I trusted you. I mean,
Yeah. Any regrets?
no, not at all.
Oh,
No, things
dang
are
it.
going well.
Come on.
I wish I could. I wish I could fund it faster. It's like, come on,
Like,
let's go. I want
the
to
only
go.
regret
So
wasn't doing before 2022. Yeah, that's true. That's like all of us.
exactly. Yeah, for sure, for sure.
Yeah. Well, last question, and you know this question because you've been a faithful listener of our show for many years. But obviously, it's the Money Ripple Show. We talk about ripple effect that we create in people's lives. Chris, what do you feel is your ripple effect? What are you here on this planet to do? Do you feel like?
I think it's just to accumulate information and pass it on to the people that I care about,
Mm,
family, friends. I've listened to a lot of podcasts since I'm retired, and most of my friends are still working in the dental field. And I say, hey, you got to listen to this podcast. So I share it with them, and so I think this is going to really, help you and things like that. I think it's just trying to share information that I think is helpful. I think I've always been somebody that likes to help people, whether it's being a dentist or just being a good person, sharing my faith with somebody or sharing my story, but
yeah.
also just helping people do better or just get better or feel better about themselves or be financially free if that's what you want to say. So yeah,
Right.
I think that's what my purpose is.
Sounds like you're really like about accumulating the information, then disseminating it to create a legacy.
Yeah, trying to do that. Yeah, I probably listen to way too much stuff if you ask my friends and family, but hey, it's easy access. I mean, they're like 20 or 30 minutes. I mean, one and a half speed or one and a quarter. And if something catches my eye or my ear, I'll stop and I'll write it down. And
Mhm.
I just incorporated a whiteboard. You can kind of see it back here where I
Oh,
just
yeah.
jot down ideas. And if I feel like I got quotes that I want to write down or scripture or whatever, so I do that. And the green part right here is all about IBC for my notes for this presentation today. So I was just trying to write down some thoughts. It's kind of nice. I mean, I just painted it on there a couple weeks ago,
Wow.
and it's been really good. I love it because I can just, if I think of something, a lot of times you think of something, if you don't write it down, it's gone.
So
It's
true.
like, what was I thinking about yesterday? And so now I write it down, and it's been really helpful. So I
That's a
think
great
that's going to
idea.
be,
That's
yeah,
probably something I should do. I actually have a whiteboard that sits there, but it's on the other side of my desk. It's almost like out of reach. But that's a really good idea. You get those little brief moments of inspiration that you know you need to act upon.
right.
Great way to do that. So, well, Chris, I really appreciate your time. Appreciate your trust in us as well over these last few years. Really, it means the world to me. And I know what you just said. I mean, obviously, taking hundreds of hours of information, distilling it in just a few minutes in this episode, I know is a massive value to a lot of people. So I know they're thanking you for that ripple effect as well. So again, thank you so much for joining us today.
Yeah, it's been my pleasure. I appreciate the invite.
So guys, it's I love what Chris shared with us today. I mean, getting his own experience, how he's been able to use it doesn't mean you have to use it the way he did, but it's nice to know that you have that flexibility that you can design the life the way that you want it, that you can design your money the way that you want it too. And so, guys, just remember, you got any good information from this, learn from Chris, write it down, and then take action. So guys, go and make it a wonderful and prosperous week. We'll see you later.